Recently, Joe Tacopina did an exclusive interview with TMZ, where he actually gets into some of the things that were happening behind the scenes, and specifically what he heard or what he was seeing from the jury. It's going to be an interesting perspective, as we didn't get to hear a lot from him during the trial because Judge Arnold said, y'all ain't talking to anybody during the trial. So you're just going to have to wait and get it all out of your system then. So shout out to TMZ for this. I'm going to leave a link to this video in the description. Not going to play the whole thing, but we definitely want to hear what Joe's talking about.
Joining us right now is Joe Tacopina, the conquering attorney in this case. Joe,
Morning,
welcome
Pocket
back
Bully.
to TMZ Live.
Thanks, Harvey. Thanks, Charles.
Okay, so two things. One, congratulations, and two, you look like you got no sleep.
Wow, right off
He
the
said,
bat,
"You look
Harvey,
terrible."
hit him with that. I mean, he's right, though.
Harvey.
I mean, he's right,
A month
though.
of no sleep. A month of no sleep, and then last night was a little rough. I don't really think I'm in condition to be a doctor right now, but I'll give it a whirl. No, but it's been a month of no sleep. I mean, look at me. It's tough. Trials like this are crazy because you don't sleep. You know, even when you're done working at 3 or 4 in the morning. You know, I sleep with one eye open and a pad next to my bed because I'm always thinking of something and my brain doesn't stop. So it's not really.
Yeah, it's got to be crazy.
You go on adrenaline. You literally go on adrenaline during the day. I did a 5.5 hour summation on no sleep, but it's adrenaline. And then after the trial, it all goes crashing down. But it was worth it. I mean, it was such a beautiful day yesterday because those two people mean so much to me. Last night was a really a great night of relief and happiness for them. And of course, for me too. And,
What were you, Joe? What were you thinking at that moment when Rocky first? There was a quick congratulatory hug, and then the crowd surfing. What were you thinking at that moment when he walked away from you?
Yo, Rocky was all over the place, man.
Into the
This is
gallery
wild.
there. Were you thinking the judge isn't going to like this, or good for him, or what was going through your mind?
The judge loved him, so it wasn't even that. Here's what was going through my mind. When there's a verdict being read, I'm laser focused on that clerk because there were 2 counts in this case. And even though I was confident, I came on your show the day before the verdict, right? I said how confident I was, which a lot of people were like, oh my God, how can you be so confident? I was like, because I am. But
we all were
there
confident, Joe.
counts, and the jury could do anything. And so I wanted to hear a second not guilty before we started hugging. You don't notice I didn't move. I didn't see Rocky leave. So I'm laser focused. I turned to him and he wasn't there. And I said to my partner, Chad, I go, did he leave? I look back and I see him body surfing in the audience. Like, what? I couldn't process this, guys.
All you saw was the bottom of his shoes.
You know the funny part of this is when you
And we mentioned it too, because we were like, man, what if the second count was guilty? Boy, that would have been super awkward. But the odds of them saying not guilty on the first one and guilty on the second one were highly unlikely, but that would have been wild for sure.
you look at it again, the bailiff was helping him over the banister. I mean, see the woman, now watch, she takes his feet and she helps him over.
As long as he's going over, let's make sure he gets over all the way.
It was great, that bailiff. But anyway, so I didn't see it. Then I'm like,
That's funny.
Get him back here. We have another count. And then I'm thinking, my God, how embarrassing would this be if they find him guilty on the second count, right?
Oh,
right.
I knew that wasn't going to happen. But everything goes through my head when I'm hearing a jury verdict. The tension is insane. Like the anxiety. This is the worst part of my job for sure. Waiting for that, you know, they say hours of boredom, seconds of terror when you're waiting for a verdict and then you hear there is a verdict. And so listening to that. And then so finally, when both counts of not guilty were read, then it was just pure elation and joy. And then, you know, Rihanna gave me, well, he obviously see Rocky there, gave me a massive hug. I couldn't breathe almost, I think. But right about then, I was like, I can't breathe. So yeah, that was
It really did look like family, Joe. And I know we talked about this on Monday where, you know, you say
that's
that
awesome.
you think of your clients as family, and they've said the same. But that hug, that's what I was thinking when I saw you guys celebrating that way. I was like, wow, that is a family hug right there.
Yeah.
It is. Those two are special to me. We've been very close for 3+ years. I can't tell you how many times I had to convince them and reassure them that it was going to be okay. I mean, Rihanna, you know, I've had a lot of one-offs with her where she's like, Joe, is my family okay? Is my family? I said, yes, you're going to be okay. We're going to be okay here. She gave me one of the strongest hugs I've ever had in my life. And you know, you notice the suit I chose to wear, that there was a sort of a light colored beige suit. She gave me this massive hug. And when she lifted her head off me, I noticed I had the whole Fenty collection on my lapel.
Shout out to Joe.
You know, I went from a pure elation of a not guilty
Hey,
verdict.
by the way, that suit coat is probably worth a lot of money.
That's right.
You could put
100%. Put it on eBay, dude.
Really distraught.
That's funny.
Like, I just was like a brand new suit. I was like, so I said last night I couldn't help myself. Rihanna, did I talk to you? So she's like, Joe.
You know,
No, Joe, you're reading it wrong. We're saying it's worth more now
No,
that it has
it's fun.
Rihanna's makeup on it.
This is worth thousands and thousands of dollars, Joe.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
true.
sell that thing.
Thousands of
Yeah,
dollars.
because
Oh, you hear that? He's like, what do you think I buy, Harvey?
I thought it was like a $300 suit, Joe.
That's funny.
You know, the thing that is really stunning about this is turning down that plea deal where he would have gotten 6 months. and
Right.
you're rolling the dice on 24 years, and you won it. So that's great. Now, the question that everybody has, certainly in our office, is an interview, a post-verdict interview.
One of the jurors.
One of the jurors gave.
Yep.
And what this juror said is a little bit confusing to us.
When
Now,
you
here we
heard
go.
the idea of the prop gun, just you personally, what'd you think about that?
I didn't really believe it. You know, I didn't think that either, you know, they had really convincing evidence that it was a prop gun. It was kind of a little mysterious the way it was prepared, and they couldn't produce it, you know, as evidence. So some of the testimony did not sound accurate or truthful.
What did you think about the testimony of Relly?
Really, you know, I believe so. I believe that he felt his life was in danger. I do. I feel for all of them, you know, all the people involved with this. I feel like this could have been avoided. I hope
That's
that
true.
In the future,
That's a good point.
Mr. Mayers really thinks his actions, you know, about his actions before, you know, he is upset with somebody. He does have a lot to lose, you know, and, you know, he's lucky at this point that, you know, we didn't have enough evidence to, you know, hand down a conviction.
You know, Joe.
Wow, she said he's lucky we didn't have enough evidence to hand down a conviction, which is what we were saying throughout this entire trial in the first place. But it's interesting to see that they mentioned at TMZ him possibly taking the plea deal, which would have been 6 months in jail. It's a lot of time if you've never been in jail before. And then, of course, he would have had the probation and a felony. And I looked up to see if California does have a first offenders rule like they do here in Georgia, to where, you know, if you're a first offender, you can maybe do a certain amount of time in your probation, and then that felony kind of falls off depending on the felony. But even in this instance, with it being a felony he would be agreeing to, which is assault with a semi-automatic firearm, the first offenders might not even apply, even if he were here in Georgia, which is, again, interesting.
She also said that they believed a crime had been committed. And you heard her say they didn't buy that, you know, your theory that it was a prop gun. So
Well,
we heard all that and we're like, well, wait a
It's a
second.
little confusing.
Why didn't they convict him then?
Well, one, that shows me the system works because there's still a reasonable doubt. And I focused heavily in my summation on a reasonable doubt. I said it only takes one.
Smart
And
move.
now, look, here's what a reasonable doubt is not. It's not he probably committed the crime. It's not I think he committed the crime. It's not he most likely committed the crime. It's not I'm almost certain he committed the crime, guys. It's I have no reason to doubt he committed the crime. That's the highest standard the law permits here.
Right.
And that's a very high standard. You just heard her. That standard wasn't even close to being met. Now, I will say this. I spoke to 3 other jurors, had completely different opinions than she did, who believed that the evidence was as strong for a prop gun than a real gun. It couldn't have been a real gun if there was no evidence of a shooting, which their lead detective said. There was no shell casings that were recovered by the police.
Right.
I could go on and on. I don't need to give my summation again. But so 3, here's what she also said in the beginning of that interview, which wasn't played here, was she said they went into the jury room and it was a 10 people wanted to vote not guilty right off the bat.
Yeah, she said that she and like one other person needed
She-
to.
she
Right.
wanted to-
Yeah, and shout out to Nick at Night. They did give her credit for this. So Nick at Night has the full interview. If y'all haven't watched that, make sure you watch it. I'll leave the link in the description to that video as well. But hey, shout out to the content creators out here getting some shine, doing their thing. But she did mention that the majority of them believed already it was not guilty. Now, for what reason they said not guilty may have been different from what the juror that was interviewed by Nick said. I find it hard to believe that people were struggling with the prop gun theory. The more and more I thought about it, it didn't seem like a theory to me. It seemed like Rocky didn't want the liability of having a real gun on the streets, and maybe he just didn't trust himself to do what he's supposed to do, and rightfully so, because he did fire 2 whatever blank shots, real shots, whatever you want to call them. So in my opinion, he made the right call if it is a prop gun. And we still don't know where those shell casings came from that really, quote unquote, found either.
She was always our problematic juror. We knew that going in, just by our faces and everything else. And that's the one that
There's always one. I told y'all.
It only took her 3 hours to be
Yeah,
convinced. Come around, right? So when she says we thought a crop, I don't think she speaks for that jury because I spoke to 3 of them.
Mhm.
And Nancy Dillon from Rolling Stone also spoke to another juror who had a completely different take on this thing, and she published that interview. I spoke to 3 jurors who reached out to me and said, "Look, we're so happy for him. Please pass on our regards and let him know that we believed him and we believed in him, and we're happy for him." So look, when you have a jury, you don't know exactly what's going on back there, right? And it's just
That kind of brings me to something that I've always wondered about. So you get a call that the jury's reached a verdict, and it was a little less than 4 hours. So
3 hours and 5 minutes.
yeah. So that. I'm sure Rihanna and ASAP asked you at some point,
what
does it mean? What do you say to them before the verdict?
Yeah.
Do you create a sense of confidence? Are you cautious? What did you say? Did they ask that? And what'd you say?
Yes, of course they asked it, and I said what I felt. Look, I don't ever
Neek
BS
like
the client,
Monique. Oh,
especially
okay, cool.
In a moment like this, when it's just the consequences are so dire. And so I said to them what I felt. And what I said to you guys the day before, I said, look, guys, we had a 4-week trial. We have very smart jurors. We had like a rocket scientist on that jury, a rocket scientist. I'm literally a rocket scientist, like a scientist who builds rocket ships.
Wow.
On that jury. Okay? For real, I never met a rocket scientist before. She was on our jury.
Well, you're not talking to here.
Yeah, or here. We're all in that same club. So anyway, I said we have a super smart jury. Reasonable doubt was, I mean, it larged this case. I mean, there's hundreds of reasonable doubts. All they need is one. And so, I said, there's no way 12 jurors came together in 3+ hours and found you guilty. There's no way. We're getting acquitted. This is going to be behind you. Now, that's what I believed. Of course, that being said, you just never know. You just never know.
Yeah, that's true.
And the judge is something very unique here that almost did give me a heart attack. I think I've lost a couple years of my life.
When he polled the jury before the verdict?
Harvey. So I've tried 120 jury trials, both as a prosecutor and defense attorney. You'd never poll a jury.
I know. I felt the same way. I know.
No, it's never happened in my career.
I was shocked. I was shocked.
Yeah, that was wild.
You don't poll a jury on not guilty. He gets the verdict forms. First of all, you read the verdict first, then you poll the jury on a guilty verdict. He gets the verdict forms. He looked angry. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I know he liked Rocky as a person. And he made it clear he liked Rocky as a person. He looked upset. He turns him down and he says, I want the jurors to be polled. I want them to all acknowledge openly that is their verdict.
Dang.
Like, are you kidding me? I'm like, how
that
did
would
this
have been
There's no
scary.
way those 12 jurors convicted. There's no way. It's impossible. I told you guys that the night before. Yeah. And I was just like, I can't believe this. For the first time, I started feeling lightheaded. So I looked over to our local counsel, Sarah Kaplan, who was there. And I said, Sarah, do they do this in California? And she said, never.
I know.
Oh my God.
I know.
Rocky, now Rocky's here listening to all this, and he looks at me.
I told you this.
He goes, oh, literally, that's what Rocky said to me. I'm like, hang in, let's see.
Dang.
But I really thought we had a problem. I really did. And then afterwards, I went to the judge. I said, hey, Your Honor, on the side, I said, what? What did you do? Did I need that?
What did he say? What did he say?
I do that in every case. I go, you poll a jury on a not guilty in every case? You know, why? He goes, I just want to make sure it's their verdict. I'm like, okay, well, you should have read the not guilty part first. Because you owe me a few years, I said.
Boy, that must have been
but anyway,
unnerving.
That was a moment, guys, where I felt ill. I felt really ill.
Right, especially after
when it happened. Yeah. But
well, now we know why there was that explosive reaction because
from Rocky, right? Because he had a moment there where he's like,
thinking,
oh,
my God, I'm screwed.
Hey, was there
That's crazy, man. Hey, congratulations again to Joe, ASAP Rocky. I'm not going to play the rest of the video. I want y'all to go support TMZ for getting this exclusive interview. I will put the link to this video in the description. Let me know what y'all think about this, man. So many wild things happened throughout this trial, and it's interesting to hear what Joe's version of what the jury said to him versus what the one juror said. As I mentioned to y'all, I've served on a grand jury before. There's always going to be that one person that's folding their arms and wants to either be contrarian or they really do believe against what everybody else is saying. And you've got to either convince them, you have to further explain things, why you're seeing it a certain way. So sounds like it went down to the wire in some cases, and it was just a very weird situation. Either way, let me know what y'all think in the comments and in the chat.